Master Healer, Master Energy Healer from Washington, D.C., Hugh Strain. Let's give it up for Hugh.
Let's see if I can put this side. The first thing I wanted to point out is that when you came in this evening, I made folders for everybody. These folders are part of the evening's program. So you should have gotten one of these, and then you should have had a little piece of folded paper. Does everybody have one of these and one piece of the folded paper in the back? You won't need that before the break, but I will be referring to it after the break. Just want to make sure. Most of it's not going to make too much sense before the break. What I'm going to talk about tonight is something I call soul, energy, and matter healing. I've had a number of teachings over the last 20 years or so from different healers and so forth, as you know. A lot of my information this evening, I will go into and explain who these teachers are and the significance of this work. I've never felt in any capacity that I had anything really to say. A number of people have told me I should be a healer and talk about it over the years. Never had the confidence, I never had the trust in the work until the last maybe year or two. So that's why I'm here this evening. I wanted to thank Elizabeth, Jazz, and Amy, particularly Amy, for rescheduling me 3 times. And so I apologize, this is out of your schedule. I'm going to Daytona Beach next week for food healing, to assist in a food healing class down in Florida. And then we got our schedules, not my mistake, we got this screwed up, and she's kind enough to move this up. And it appears to have affected you guys. So I'd be happy to come back if that's what you'd like. Once again, thanks to Elizabeth and Kaz, who have experienced some of the work that I'm going to be talking about this evening. Before I came up here, I had a birthday, and a couple of my friends said, "Hey, are you going out to do a talk?" I said, "Yeah," and they said, "Are you going to do a joke?" And I said, "A joke? No, this is serious stuff. These are serious people, Metaphysical Society, talking about healing. I'm not going to be doing a joke." They said, "Well, are they going to have a microphone for you?" I said, "Well, I imagine there's a microphone. I think there's a microphone up there." And they said, "Well, open up your birthday card." And so when I did, let's see here. This was the birthday card. And so kid bent over, whatever he's doing into that microphone. And so that's what my friends think of me. I hope that by the end of the evening, I have some different thoughts. So here's what we're going to talk about this evening. Based on your structure and how you do things. The first part of the evening, I'm going to be kind of conveying information to you, hopefully not overwhelming. I spent the last 4 months or so preparing this presentation. It took that long. I had several hundred slides. I knew I couldn't do it jamming into a 45-minute session, so I've done a lot of culling, and they're in backups. I have a design that could accommodate a 2-day workshop probably. I have that much material. But what we're going to be talking about, though, is an overview of this 3-tiered healing system, how it works, the nature of the soul. A lot of the information this evening is from Tao secrets that go back thousands of years. You're probably not going to find them in a book anyplace. How that impacts physical illness, issues at the soul and energy level. I'm going to talk about soul blockages in particular, as I mentioned. What are the negative karmas? What are they all? And how do you clear them, most importantly? How do they impact your life? Talk about soul communications, and Elizabeth probably is a fine example of having open soul communications channels. And I'll mention that. And so some people have that gift, and other people, if you don't have it, probably because you have chronic blockages in the area.
Okay, it keeps flipping up.
We'll talk about mind and energy blockages, and then something what I call light and information blockages. This is Eric Pearl's work, Reconnective Healing. And that's why I'm sticking around for a couple days in the Georgetown area to offer the Reconnection. I'll explain what that is. It's a very hard thing to get into your schedule, and it's a hard thing to get into my schedule. The reason is it has to be done consecutively in 2 days, physically in person. I have to be there, and so do you, 2 days in a row. That's a hard thing to pull off. we'll talk about that and why you might want to do that. You really have to be interested in your spiritual future to rearrange your schedule to make that happen. We'll have a break. We'll talk about, just briefly after the break, about matter, the matter level. We're going to talk about soul, energy, and matter. At the matter level, we're going to talk about food healing and how that can really reverse disease significantly. Offer a 3-level healing program. You'll see what that is later. It's offered in the sheet, but you don't know what it is yet. Okay, the most important thing is that afterwards, and that's what I promised hopefully on the website, is that we're going to actually do self-clearing of karma. So if you came in here with karma tonight, and if you stay till the end, you're going to leave with less. Okay? And we're going to do that 3 ways. We're going to chant. I brought a CD that's extremely powerful for that purpose. I'll explain why. That'll be for sale over here. I bought a book, and I'll explain the book. It's not just a book. It's a series of 9 portals, or stargates. And I'll explain that. We're also going to fold some of this wandal paper that you have, which the reason I asked you to take a piece is because we're going to fold it. This is the most powerful way on earth for you to self-clear negative karma. And this will be a fire ceremony that will take place on New Year's Day. And you have 10 sheets of blank paper. I'll explain that. That'll be after the break. And if we have time, I'm going to put on the most powerful CD that I have in my collection from 20 or 30 years. And that will create in this room a manifestation field. It's that mystical and quantum. And we'll talk about the Tao and the creation of the universe and creation and reverse creation. So it's very powerful. This is my medical disclaimer. Why do I put that in there? Because we're going to talk about the matter level, which is the area of medical doctors. However, I have a lot to say about it. If you do, first of all, I have to make sure that I'm not practicing medicine, not doing diagnosis. Make sure that you understand that. I'll say enough. We'll talk about that later. Now, you may have come here for a number of reasons tonight. One is you might have, you want to heal or prevent some disease you have. This work will do both of those things. It'll prevent it and it'll heal it very powerfully. And I'll explain why. It's primarily because we're going to be talking about karma. It's going to improve relationships. You could have come here because you have bad marriages, bad girlfriend, boyfriend type of things going on, or even parental childhood. A lot of those problems are actually karmic as well. Can't see what that's like. Financial abundance, yes. If you think you need a little more money in your life, it could be caused by something called financial karma. It could also be caused by, more mysteriously, something called vow of poverty. That vow of poverty probably took place in another lifetime when you were a Buddha or whatever you might have been, a nun. And those, much to my surprise, those vows do not clear when you reincarnate. They remain with you. And if you don't know you have them, you're never going to make any money. So the likelihood of you being successful financially with financial karma and vows of poverty is really remote. And finally, increased intelligence. That may seem like a strange thing, but a lot of intelligence issues could be karmic. Now that's kind of like why you might want to be here for yourself. That's sort of like me. I need to fix me. I need this. I want better this. Want better that. But there's a next level up here, and some of you may actually be at a much higher level than that, and they may have come for a different reason this evening. Is that we're entering a new era for humanity, a new 15,000-year cycle. Time, everything reincarnates, including time. So that's a weird concept to grasp, but time reincarnates every 15,000 years. And so this is the beginning of a new cycle, and there's going to be a lot of problems. You're probably very familiar with them already. You're seeing them in the news for the last several months. This is probably just the beginning. It's not going to get any better. I don't want to sit here and kind of tell you the end of the world, but we are talking about a transition for the Earth, Mother Earth. And so the reason you may want to be here is that as you clear your karma and raise your spiritual healing abilities, you'll be able to assist the Earth in these transitions, because it's not going to get any better. Another reason you might be here at a next level up, so now we're talking about, okay, you may have come for yourself, to fix this, to fix that. You might want to help other people. The next level up, as you continue to purify, we'll talk about that this evening, you're actually moving closer and closer to enlightenment. So we'll talk about the different stages of enlightenment as well, and how you get there. And basically, it takes a while. We're talking about hundreds, thousands of lifetimes. However, if you can figure out ways of clearing your karma, you can cut those reincarnations down dramatically. And that's what we're going to be doing this evening. And those little pieces of paper in your folder are the most powerful way to start moving forward. Now, I've had, as you see on my bio, 20 years of studying healing. And as I mentioned earlier, a number of my teachers said, hey, why don't you start getting, where's your card, where's your business cards? So let's go over who some of them are. Who am I? And her guru. This is a guru. I had Kundalini Awakening in 1997. If you've not had Kundalini Awakening, we'll talk about that later, is why you might want to get that. But my journey began, it's a very mysterious story. I think I shared it with Elizabeth, but how I met this guru and what happened when I got Kundalini Awakening. That was quite a while ago. And her guru in the spiritual world was Baba Nityananda. And this being here came into Earth fully enlightened. So it was like a bird. The story is it was a bird, and all of a sudden there's a baby on in the walkway in India, and the bird left, and some woman had to raise it. But this was a fully enlightened being. And the story of what he could do on Earth in India in the late 1800s, extraordinary reading about it. Eric Pearl, a lot of his inspiration comes from the Pleiades, if you've done any reading about him.
On the back of the school.
Yes. Master Shaman is one of my teachers that has taught me about he's the one that's developed the construct for soul energy and matter. One of the reasons I couldn't teach this stuff is I couldn't put it into any kind of logic I could understand. None of it made any sense to me. I tried shamanism, I tried this, I tried that. I couldn't make sense of any of it until I heard about soul energy and matter. Once I did, boom. Now I could slide everything into a slot, which is what I do. I'm an analyst. So I don't trust anything. I analyze everything. And I've spent 20 years analyzing healing work. And I now feel I have something legitimate to share. His master was Master Guo. He was, I've heard some of the stories of him in China and how he healed SARS over there using herbs and Chinese massage. And he began to work with karma. Not as powerfully as we're getting it now. A guy named Jeff Premack, who lives down in Florida, 4-year-old American guy, but he spent like 10 or 15 years in China, Qigong master, and he taught food healing as well. So I spent 2 or 3 years trying to certify in food healing with him. It takes a while. It's a little tricky. You have to memorize all of the phytochemicals and so forth. So it's not an easy thing to do. But it is one of the most powerful ways to heal the physical body, at least I think. If you don't have a lot of karma, you can do some amazing things just eating differently. And I'll explain that. And finally, Dr. Brad Nelson, who did the emotion body code. Why him? Well, first of all, I have many more teachers than this. These are the ones that I put on here because these are the ones I had to certify with some kind of, something you put on the wall. So I had to actually get certifications from these environments in order to do stuff. And some of this has been guided. Okay, I was guided to study this, I was guided to study that, and I was guided to go recertify that. I had the reconnection in 2002. Okay, and I thought, well, it's just another thing I did. I got told to go back and recertify in the Reconnective healing and reconnection. I didn't understand why. It's making more sense to me now. That's how I met Chaz. Okay. Here's the foot stomper for the evening. Negative karma is the root cause of all human suffering. You may already know that in this audience. It may not be a mystery to you. And so the question is, okay, now what? And this was the other foot stomper. There was a test. Sir, selfless service to others is the key way that you clear negative karma. There's a second component to it, which is Let's see, yeah, there's another component to it. But before we get there, this doesn't have to be anything dramatic. This could be something as simply as making somebody smile. Now, there is a physics to how long it takes to clear how much karma, don't get me wrong. But you can start every day by just making somebody happy. And so the more you make somebody happy, you're getting virtue for that. So it's not something you have to do, but it's just, if you can begin to live like that, that is a very key way to begin clearing karma naturally. It'll just take a lot longer. The story I was going to give you is on this one is I just, I was looking for the shortest cashier line, and I analyzed, I run back and forth, I always pick the wrong line, but when I finally got this line, and I got up there very frustrated, and there was two ladies there, and the one was packing my stuff, and I said, I analyzed these lines, and I picked this line because of you. And she just had a big smile. So she just made my day. I didn't really expect her to. I was just trying to tell her I was analyzing these lines, and I thought hers was the most likely the fastest way out of here. So, but it just made her day. Just radiated. So that's that something is that small, and that's of course the golden rule. You see it in all the world's religions. It's nothing really surprising about that.
So you got to adjust there.
Yeah. The second component of this is forgiveness. So if you can think of it as a two-part thing, one is the selfless service, the other is forgiveness practice. And that forgiveness practice needs to be done daily, actually. If you had any idea, perhaps, of your karma, you can see why. I'll talk to you about some of the karma work I've done in the last 3 years. I've had about 200 clients, and I've analyzed their karma, so I have some pretty good data about karma. I'll share that with you. But forgiveness practice is one of the keys. If any of you studied Ho'oponopono, which I did back in the 90s with, that it actually has its foundation, is all about forgiveness practice. That's where I first heard about it. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this doctor, but he basically healed a mental institution by more or less asking for forgiveness for himself, taking accountability for why they were in it. Kind of like, I never understood it at the time, but it actually makes sense now. This was something I found about 3 months ago when I was preparing this presentation. I never cared for George Bush, quite frankly. I didn't like the invasion of Iraq. However, I'm not going to get into politics, but what I did find is that he's now doing service. He's painting pictures of many of the soldiers that he sent to Iraq. And he's meeting them, and he's doing his own form of forgiveness. So, it doesn't have to be folding wamba like we're going to do tonight. It can be anything. I was just really touched by this story. Now, this is probably the more controversial of the slides. Prayer alone will not clear karma. This looks like a pretty easy audience to make that statement in. Other audiences might not go over so well. But if you think of karma, it's like taking a loan out with a bank. For your car, for your house. Karma is like a loan or a debt from your past actions. We'll talk about that. So prayer is kind of like going to the bank and going, hey, can you forget my loan? It's like, why should I forget your loan? It's your loan, your debt. So that's kind of, I don't want to be sarcastic about prayer, but prayer is asking for your karmic debt to be forgiven. It's not a guarantee. So that you don't want to focus just on that. If you're doing just prayer, you may not get too far, too fast. And like I say, I was raised Catholic. I was an altar boy, so I don't want to beat up on the Catholic Church or anything like that. But we'll talk about the mechanisms of clearing karma as we go on. I think that'll make more sense later. So how does this system work? First of all, the concept, there's a few little weird concepts in here that may take you a while to grasp. It took me a while. But everything in the universe is made up of soul, energy, and matter. And so that's that three-tier construct. If you can kind of just accept it, don't think about it too hard. It's like everything has a soul. Everything is made up of soul, energy, and matter. Just 3 parts. So at the matter level, this is where you probably see a doctor. Right? This is if you have some problems, you go to Western medicine. They do surgery, they give you drugs, and so forth. That's typically what people do at the matter level to resolve something. The next level up, if you're a little more evolved or a little open, is something like traditional Chinese medicine. you understand that energy flows in the body and you need to clear it, blockages. And so some of you may be doing acupuncture or TCM, herbs. That's the energy level. The next level up is the soul, and many people forget about this to some extent. The dividing line now that I'm going to be talking about this evening is soul will be up here, and anything involving energy, we'll talk about that as being the body. So we get the body and the soul, but we got 3 different levels. And then to make it even a little more complicated, soul is comprised of soul, heart, and mind. This one threw me for a loop. I had to figure this out, well, I just accepted it, and I'll explain it to you the best I can. But think about the 3 components of the soul, or soul, heart, and mind. And we'll talk about how that works. So if you look at traditional Chinese medicine, this is, if qi flows, blood flows. If qi's blocked, blood is stagnant. So a lot of you are acupuncturists or familiar with that concept. But that's from an ancient traditional Chinese medicine, Yellow Emperor. So that's why Qigong is so powerful. If you do the Qigong, start moving the energy, and the blood moves, and as the blood moves, it starts to heal. So how does this work? Here's an overly simplified way. I figured I would make it, translate it into a deck of cards and play poker. Everybody's probably played poker or heard poker, right? So the soul, those are the aces. The energy level are kings, queens, and jacks. At the matter level, you have the number cards. And you think, oh, well, I'm screwed. If I'm going to a doctor, all I'm playing with are the number cards. Where are the aces, right? Well, the thing you need to keep in mind is 4 sevens is a pretty powerful hand in poker, isn't it? So this could be something like a really good food healing program, 4 sevens. The problem is, if you have a lot of karma, if you have 4 aces, you're screwed. I don't care how much you do at the matter level. You must clear the karma, so you don't want 4 aces in your soul level. And so you really need to understand how much karma you have, and you got to get rid of it if you want to have a happy life, basically. So that's the simplest way I can explain it with a deck of cards. We're going to get into a little more depth now, and if we think of those levels as a waterfall that has different levels in it. Notice this waterfall is flowing freely. There are no obstructions, right? It's just gently flowing down from these different levels. So up here, that's the soul, right? Down here's matter. So it's working its way down. What we want in our bodies is we want light to do the same thing. From the Christ consciousness, we want to come down, we want it to flow all the way through these levels with no obstructions. We'll talk a little bit later about where the soul comes from, but basically the soul sends you a message. And that comes from heaven, we'll call it heaven, right? So the soul sends a message. You should be a healer. You should be this. You should do that. You should be not. So that's coming from the most pure place. So it comes in as the soul then leads the heart. So it tells the heart that. The heart leads the mind. This is when there's no obstructions. What then happens is the soul leads the energy level, which leads matter. So you take some action on something. If you have no obstructions, that's going to flow nicely. You get the soul message and you start taking action in your life. The problem is all the blockages. So what are the type of blockages? At the soul level, negative karma. Okay, that includes your ancestors, by the way, not just you. You don't want to have ancestors with bad karma. It's a serious issue, actually. It'll affect 50 to 60% of your life. Problems comes from your ancestors' karma. At the heart level, you could have impurities such as selfishness, greed, desire for fame and money. Those are heart blockages. The mind level, negative mindsets, attitudes, beliefs, ego. Those are mind blockages. So you look at all these problems you could have just right here for that soul message, just to get down to the energy level. There's a lot going on there you have to clear. Energy level, what are they? Okay? Anger, anxiety, depression, guilt. All the emotions that come with living life. Those are energy blocks. And finally, down at the matter block, you get tumors, cysts, inflammation, and so forth. So you wonder why you're sick. It didn't start here. It didn't start down here. Okay? If you're sick, it started at the soul first. Okay, there's a quote there. When a person gets sick, the soul gets sick first, then the sickness of the mind and body follows. That's the sequence. And do we understand that in the West? I don't know. Maybe we don't. Maybe we do. Some enlightened people do this, who understand this. That's why I'm out here talking, because I think this is important information. So until the 20th century, it was mind over matter. Now we think about this now as soul over matter. You got to go up a notch. You got to get the aces in the deck. So let's talk about the nature of the soul. What is the soul? Well, it's a golden light being, and every soul has its own personality. Humor, some are serious. So souls are all different, and but what they really want is they want to rise up. They want to raise. So what are the three major souls? The first soul occurs at conception, and it's called the heaven soul. Okay, it comes from the Akashic records, and that's where your task from heaven sits. And it came in with you as soon as that conception occurred. The next set of souls that came in, where does it sit? It sits right here in a place called the soul temple, right in this area. That's where that one sits. Right from the moment of conception. The next thing that happens that I didn't know this either is then you get 5 major organ souls. And those come in as the fetus grows. You see heart, spleen, lungs, kidneys, and liver. That's what comes next. And as the fetus begins to grow. And if you're into Chinese medicine, you recognize those as the yin components of fire, air, earth, so forth. Finally, what happens next? The body, soul, or the true self. This comes in about 8 months. I never understood this. I struggled with this when I studied astrology because I worked with a psychic who was also an astrologer. And she could see souls circling pregnant women. And she would tell me that they would enter very late. Soul didn't enter. I said, oh, that's weird. That gets into the whole abortion thing. Well, now that we know the heaven soul is instantaneous, what soul are you talking about in abortion, right? However, the body soul, the one that reincarnates, that comes in very late. That's what she was talking about. She just didn't have all of the ontology here. Now this soul, you see I used a different color here. These souls are gold because the soul is gold colored. This soul is rainbow, and I'll explain to you why in just a moment. That's going to tell you something about that baby. And that soul, the body soul, that will be located in one of the chakras. And it's going to tell you how evolved you are, so spiritually, where that's sitting. Okay, now what happens when you die? These souls leave first, that soul leaves next, and then finally this soul. So they go in a certain sequence at death. Now, something called soul standing. Here we have the chakras. Somebody right here, you see that small gold soul at the first chakra? That would be a new, let's say a new young soul. Somebody who's just, been born and hasn't had a lot of lifetimes. They start out with a small soul, down the first chakra could be the size of a walnut. Over time, as you purify, the soul starts to rise through the chakras, and it gets larger. I don't know if you can see the animation. But that soul is coming up. Now we have a soul quite large, sitting in the 4th chakra. Okay? Once the soul sits in the 4th chakra permanently, that soul, that person is an enlightened being. That's the beginning of enlightenment, when your soul sits here, permanently. And you can't decide where it sits. That comes from the Akasha. Okay? The next level up is rainbow up here at the 5th. So now you know that baby, when a rainbow came in, you know that is an enlightened being, that baby. Because its soul is rainbow in color and sitting at the 5th chakra. Next level up, purple at the 6th chakra and crystal. And these are small for the animation, but as the soul goes up, these souls could be the size of the earth as they get larger and larger. So when you have a soul sitting here in crystal, and then there's above crystal. So this soul here, even though it looks like that, might be the size of the earth. And only the divine can load in souls at this level. And that might explain some of the photographs you see in art and so forth of different spiritual beings. that have these auras. Because what you're seeing is that crystalline soul behind it. Now, everyone and everything has a soul. That's another foot stomper. Everything. This building, the trees outside, rivers, and so forth. And so you can see here from this image, even though you might not have the best view of it, everything in this image has a soul. Here's the universe. There's a piece of DNA down here. Here's a Tibetan child. Here's 3 rabbis. All of these souls, everything in here has a soul, but it's all, the standing of that soul is all different. So this child right here could have a soul up here in the rainbow, whereas one of these rabbis could easily have a soul down in the 3rd chakra. Just because he's a rabbi doesn't mean anything. It means nothing spiritually. So let's talk about the levels of the soul. That's level 9, stones and sand. And as you go up, 8 oceans, rivers, 7 is plants. Level 6 is bacteria and viruses. So this is the state as the soul begins to rise through many lifetimes. Level 5 is fish. Now this is level where reincarnation, so level 3 human beings. Those are Philadelphia Eagles fans. That's a level 4 human. There are also level 3 humans. So for these level 3 humans, I think what they have to do is take off the eagle outfit and start having kale smoothies. So basically there are 2 levels of the normal human being soul. So that's one way of representing it. It doesn't mean if you're a sports fan, you're level 3, but if you're rooting for the Eagles, you might win. Now let's get to the saint's realm. So as you continue to go up, there's 2 levels of saint, level 2B, and then as you continue to rise and purify, there are 2B, 2A, 1B, and 1A levels of saints. And these are resulted from purification, basically, and service. That's the only way you can kind of move up. So I might be talking about hundreds of lifetimes, thousands of lifetimes between these different levels. And one of the things that keeps you from moving faster is what? Karma, right? So all the more reason to be folding some of that paper, if that's of interest to you. I mean, if rising up is of interest to you. Otherwise, you'll be reincarnating here and having problems for a long time. Now, beyond this, where reincarnation no longer exists, these are various stages of enlightenment. Hard enlightenment is when your Shen Qi Jing, or your soul energy and matter, is aligned with that of the earth. Okay, at that point, you have achieved hard enlightenment. Very powerful state. And then, as you work your way up over hundreds and thousands of lifetimes with service and testing and battles, you can achieve mind enlightenment when everything in you is now at the same frequency as heaven. And finally, the ultimate is called body enlightenment. And this is the Tao up here, the source, where purity exists. Once you are completely synchronized in frequency with the Tao, you then become an immortal, fully enlightened being. So your body can live forever, basically. Powers, and the spiritual powers increase dramatically. Does anybody have an idea what 15% might be with the picture of the earth?
What was the question again?
I've got the number 15% and a picture of the earth. Any correlation there, or what might be, what that might be?
Population.
What's that?
Population.
No, that is the number of souls on the earth that have achieved the first stage of enlightenment. Okay. Which I was surprised by that. That's quite interesting. Any idea what the number 5 is? And this visual represents all of the universes. Any idea what the number 5 is? Immortals. Exactly. Very good. That is out of the entire history of man anywhere, any universe, only 5 have achieved immortality with the Tao. So that gives you an idea just how hard that is. Okay, we normally have hundreds to thousands of lifetimes. Any idea what the average number of lifetimes is?
What was the question again?
We have normally, if you believe in reincarnation, we'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
We have hundreds to thousands of lifetimes. What I'm asking you is what do you think the average number is?
I would think they're simultaneous.
Okay, that's possible too. But if we avoid that issue,
Okay.
there probably are.
333.
Did you say 500?
I said 500.
Yeah, 500. Who said 500? That's very good, because the actual number is roughly 600, so you're very close. Now, Dr. David Hawkins has these levels of consciousness. I think maybe some of you have heard about them, from all the way up to 1,000. So that's another thing as your, my level of consciousness has risen in the last 3 years. I tracked my own. So you can actually raise it, and I don't know if it affects my behavior, but it must be a soul level thing. Because in college I was in around 100 something. My focus was cars, drinking, that kind of stuff. And that's a consciousness of a typical college kid. It's not there now, but that's, it's raised itself. I'm going to skip this slide here in the interest of time. Now, all of these souls have miraculous healing powers. These are various great beings. You got Jesus, Kuan Yin. This is the guru I talked about earlier, Lao Tzu, the Buddha. And the reason is they had no blockages in these qualities right here. So you see love, forgiveness, compassion, light, humility, harmony, enlightenment, flourishing, service, and gratitude. So they had cleared, purified enough to have no blocks there. And that's how you get to those greater healing powers and abilities. Now, here's one of the most important things tonight for anybody that's a healer. This I didn't understand, never heard of this before until about 2 or 3 years ago. Is that